Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video, something completely different from what we normally do. We are going to be taking a look at something to take care of our vehicle. Now, this is a 12-piece buffing and polishing kit from a company called Bluespot. I think they're pretty much in the UK only, but if I find other links for elsewhere, I'll put them in the video description. This you should be able to pick up for somewhere in the region of about £15 in the UK. It essentially is designed for buffing and polishing, so you don't necessarily have to use it in the way that we're going to be using it today. We're actually going to be using it to actually take some of the oxidization off of headlamps on a car, which is a very common MOT failure here in the UK, and I'm guessing in other parts of the world where you have sort of standards tests and they check your headlights to make sure they work, etc. I'm not too sure about other countries, but certainly for us in the UK, this is a constant problem. Bad weather, then you get oxidization on the headlamps, and it basically makes the light more dim and less safe when you're driving at night. And especially as we are heading into the kind of autumn and winter months here in the UK, I thought it was a very good time to do it. On the MOT recently, our car actually had an advisory saying that the headlamps are starting to mist over, and you're possibly seeing some B-roll of this from a little bit earlier, which I recorded, just so you can see what they actually look like at the moment. So what we're going to do is use this and also some cutting compound to actually try and rectify the damage to the headlamps. Replacing headlamps is extremely expensive and also very time consuming. Generally it's something that has to be done by a garage unless you're qualified or have a little bit of kind of DIY know-how. So this is a pretty good option. So for around about £15, you will need a drill, either a battery powered or an electric drill, that you can actually put this into to use it, but you'll see all that later on in the video. So let's get in and see what this is all about. So as you can see, 12-piece buffing and polishing kit comes with a variety of pads. You've got flat pads in both the stiff and soft, and also you've got some waffle weave pads as well, varying different degrees of hardness and softness, so you can choose whichever is right for your particular application. For heavy oxidization, you probably want to start off with a pretty heavy duty pad, and then for other applications you might want to use a softer pad just to kind of buff up some paintwork or remove some swirls, that kind of stuff, but that's more for paintwork rather than the glass or acrylic for headlamps. You can also use it to do other things around the house. So if you've got some chrome or something on a fireplace or whatever it is, there is pretty much going to be a pad that you can use on here. Now, it will fit anything which will hold a M14 arbor. I'll show you that in a little bit. And also the maximum rotation speed that they're recommended on this is 12,000 RPM. So just make sure that you don't obviously exceed that speed. You can of course go considerably lower. So if you want to go low and slow, you can do, but if you're looking at going over 12,000 RPMs, then this is probably not the kit for you. The pads themselves are all 115 mil, so I think that's somewhere around about 5¼ inches, something along those lines. But anyway, you get the idea of what it's all about. On the side of the box shows you what you get inside, and on the back there's some information about the contents and all that kind of stuff. So it's an M14 arbor. Maximum RPM, they're saying 1250 or 12,500 rather. 150 mil pads, ideal for smaller projects. That doesn't mean you can't do your entire car or whatever it is with it, but it is more, obviously because the smaller pads, it's going to cover a smaller area. So if you're doing a huge van or something, you might want to get one with like a 6, 7 or 8 inch pad on it. Anyway, let's take a look inside and see what we actually get. Well, you can pretty much get a good idea of what we've seen from the box there. So we get a selection of pads, and inside you should find also, there is the arbor bit. So that is an M14 thread. You also get your Velcro backed backing disc. So this is the main part, the backing disc with a Velcro on there, hook and loop. And all you do is insert this, screw that in, and then this will go into your drill bit, into the chuck. You can tighten that in, and then you can apply one of the pads that you choose. So let's take a look at the pads and see what we get. So first of all, we've got this one, which is a synthetic, kind of like a wool effect. So this is basically a buff-in pad. Now, in order to use this, all you do, these have got the right backing on, it is Velcro, so just attach it on there, and that's it, you're good to go. And obviously when it spins, the fluffy side buffs up. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward, and they do stick on pretty well. They are somewhat disposable because they are quite inexpensive, and you can buy replacements at kind of auto parts stores, that kind of thing. You can wash them if you want to. You can get a specific fluid which is designed for cleaning off pads and removing polish from them. And obviously if you do drop them on the floor, get them dirty, if you get stones or grit on them, obviously you don't want to use them because it's just going to scratch the heck out of whatever surface you're trying to actually repair. So in terms of the flat pads, now the flat pads are going to be more heavy duty. So if you're doing something which has got heavy oxidization or you need a heavier cut, then you want to use the stiffer pads and specifically the flatter ones because they're going to provide more contact, but on the flip side they will generate more heat as well and technically have a kind of slightly less surface area. But anyway, you get 2 of each of the colors, so you get the 2 black ones, and those are your softer pads, so more for kind of finishing. And you get the orange pads. These are the more kind of dense pads, so they're a harder one, so this is going to give you the maximum abrasion. Moving over to the other side, so as you can see we've got varying levels here, so I've tried to organize them in what I think is the right level. They don't actually say on them what they are in terms of a grade, but this is kind of my take on it. So the black one, this is the waffle, and this is very soft, so this is going to be almost like a finishing pad. Then you've got the red, which is also pretty soft as well, very similar design. Then you've got a green, which is kind of somewhere in between, it's a medium I would say. Again, it's got the waffle effect. Then you've got a blue, which is a little bit harder, although yeah, those kind of are interchangeable, there's not a lot between them. And last of all, you've got the orange one, which is noticeably harder. So this is going to be great again for slightly more heavy duty stuff, which is possibly prone for heating up, that sort of stuff. So because you've got the waffle on there, it gets a bit more air in there. And also the waffle ones, if you're using this constantly, then you'll find that these waffle ones have less fling to them because there is obviously the indentations. When you apply your product, it goes into the kind of the dots there and it kind of keeps hold of it. Whereas if you obviously apply a product onto a flat surface, then it's got more tendency to fling outwards. So yeah, just use whichever pad you feel is best for the job. To be completely honest with you, it's very hard to get this wrong. The only thing that you will find is because this is going to be on a rotary drill, then you are going to have the issue with potentially it getting overheated. So heat is something to bear in mind. When you have a polishing pad on like a DA type device, it oscillates and it spins and that reduces the heat. Whereas with this, you are going to find it heats up quite quick because the friction is constant and is in a specific area at the same time. Anyway, that is what we actually get inside the kit. You've seen what the headlamps look like. So now let's get this put into practice. We're going to get some of our cutting compound. For this, I'm going to be using Meguiar's Ultimate Compound. Really, this is more for paints, but I wanted to see if it'll do it on the headlamps. The headlamps aren't massively oxidized, so we're going to try and get them a little bit earlier. Maybe if your headlamps are a little bit more oxidized, then you might want to go for a specific product such as Lamp Doctor, which is very good as well. But we're going to try this first of all to save us spending any money because this is something we already had. So let's get this packed up. We'll go outside and see how well it does. So we're outside, got our drill, got our backing plate. We're going with the orange one, which is the heavy duty one, and going to put this somewhere safe so it doesn't get grit all over it. And what we're going to do, going to apply a little bit of compound. I'm going to put it straight on the pad rather than onto the headlamp itself. So it's going to dab a few bits on there. So let me grab that. So Meguiar's compound is what we're going to use, and that's going to basically dab a little bit on here. So just a few dabs on there, and we'll give that a go. So to start off with, just want to apply some very light pressure. And what I'm going to do is just going to dab that around a little bit, just to get a little bit of a spread, and also distribute some of the product. And we'll start off very slowly. And what you can do is just check, make sure it's not generating too much heat. Actually doesn't feel too bad at the moment. And I think what I'll do is I will add a little bit more product onto the pad. And just get it applied across. You can, if you want to, tape off all these areas if you don't want the product overlapping. Okay, so we've given it a bit of a polish. I've now swapped over pads, so we're on the buffing one now, just to try and take off some of the residue and see what it's like. So there we go, that is actually a lot better. So if we take a look at the one on the other side now. So we've gone from something almost like that to that, and that is on the first pass. So we could probably cut that back a little bit more, but I think it's actually much better. Still a little bit of clouding on there, which we might have to try and hit again, but I think for a first attempt that is actually a pretty decent job. So let's give you a shot from further back. So yeah, that is pretty much night and day, although arguably the one on the left hand side was slightly worse to begin with anyway. But certainly it is a step in the right direction, and I think if you went to a garage they would look at the one on the right and say, yep, that's a pass. The one on the left, maybe not so much. So we're back and the job is done, well, pretty much done. I'll give you some B-roll so you can see what it's like. I did actually do another pass over the passenger side headlamp, and then I had another go at the driver's side one, which was the worst of the two. And you should be seeing now some sort of before and after shots of what that lamps were actually like. I haven't done a perfect job. It's far from it, to be honest with you. I should have cleaned it after, wiped it down, etc. All that kind of usual stuff. But this was just to get an idea of if this kit actually does make sense. And I think actually for £15, it's fantastic. I've looked just now, you can actually see it on the screen behind me. The price of a new BMW E91 headlamp is rather expensive. The cheapest I could find was around about £90, and some of the other ones like Halo Eyes, that sort of thing, or Angel Eyes, looking at 250 each. If you go to BMW, even more expensive. So if I needed to replace both headlamps and also the time and expense and then have to get them sort of re-angled and all that kind of stuff, it's an absolute pain. So whereas this, for £15 roughly, for all these pads, if you've already obviously got a drill already, that is useful. It doesn't have to be a cordless one, you can use a corded one as well. And also getting some compound. One thing I would have said as well, this Meguiar's Ultimate Compound, much better for light scratches and bodywork rather than the actual lamps themselves. I don't think it's quite as aggressive as it needs to be to remove some of that deeper pitting. Even after going over it twice, there are still some imperfections there, which you're probably seeing from some of the close-ups, but it's definitely an MOT pass. You can't see any obvious misting and they don't look corroded. And I think I'm actually tempted to take it back up to the MOT station and get them to have a second opinion and say, is this okay? I would have loved for it to have been absolutely glass crystal clear, but I think due to the fact that it's a kind of an acrylic base anyway, it's unlikely that's going to happen. The car is, after all, the best part of 15, 16 years old, so you do have to expect some deterioration. But if you're interested to see a follow-up video on this, let us know in the comment section below. There is a specific product called Lamp Doctor, which I'm actually very eager to try. Or if there's any products that you know of, which you've used on headlamps before, which work really well. Now, there's going to be obvious things like using wet and dry in various grades, but I think that requires a little bit more work and is a more skilled task, whereas this, pretty much anyone can just pick up and use it. But anyway, I think that's going to wrap this video up. Overall, very impressed with the kit itself. For £15, it offers fantastic value for money and potentially could save you an absolute ton on buying new headlamps or just polishing out scratches. Those themselves are very expensive to repair as well. So that wraps things up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.